Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Cup of Joe with Joe and Joe. I am your host, Joe, and with me, as always, is my wonderful co host, Joe.
This is cup number 6, ladies and gentlemen.
Ooh, baby, cup numero seis. All right, so, thing real quick up top, bit of organizational crap. We're trying out something new. So, if you haven't noticed, the latest episodes of Cup of Joe, instead of being like 1 to 1.5 hours, are sort of getting like consistently 2 hours, and that's a tad long. It's a tad long, number one, to try and keep energy up and to try and keep interest up, even in us two who like listen to these things when we export all the editing. I say all the editing, all the intense
It
editing
takes
we do, Joe.
hours and hours. We have a whole team. The whole
Whole
league of
team,
Joes in the closet.
whole League of Joes. Casey Neistat, honorary Joe. The Rowan Atwood family, honorary Joes. All of them. Do they do editing? I don't actually know. I just thought of a YouTuber name. What
I
other
don't know.
famous YouTubers would
They
be our
probably
editors?
hire somebody.
Probably. We rehired all of SourceFed, of course. Um, Any hoozles. So we have split up Cup of Joe, the podcast. You're still getting everything. Don't worry. You're still getting a movie, comic books, and anime review, all that sort of stuff. We're just splitting them up into 3 different segments that'll be coming to you throughout the week. And I believe we'll probably just upload them one day after the other. So the way it's going to work, Tuesdays, our normal upload day, which it just happens to be our normal upload day. Tuesdays will be movie discussions, reviews, discussions, that sort of thing, which is what's going to be happening today. So stay tuned for what it's going to be from the title of the video. It's Rocky. Then Wednesday, it's going to be comic reviews, that sort of a thing. And then Thursdays will be the ever so glorious anime review of Attack on Titan, and then when that finishes, if this is still going, we might both be dead. I don't know. We'll pick something else after that. So that's how it's going to work. Still getting the same amount of content. It's just in smaller packages and spread out over the course of the week. Okay, everyone got that? Good? Joe, you good?
I think it makes sense.
Okay, good. So let us get into the meat and potatoes of today's episode. First, Cup of Joe with Joe and Joe, movie exclusive edition. Joe, what is the movie, pray tell, that we are doing today since you failed to tell us last week?
Yes, I didn't do my homework last week, but I had a very swift decision. I slept on it, woke up the next morning, texted Joe, and I had my decision all made up. And I decided that I wanted to make the movie Rocky. And
No, you keep talking, it just goes underneath.
oh, okay. And I picked Rocky because I really didn't know what I wanted to pick, but I knew I had to mix it up, and Rocky's one of my all-time favorites, and it was a movie that I was actually in the mood to watch. So I said, you know what, screw it, we're watching it, and I could talk about this movie for hours, and I am beyond excited to share my thoughts on it and hear Joe's.
Okay, wonderful. Yeah, so let's just hop right into it. We don't need to do a friggin' recap of Rocky. Everyone knows what Rocky is. So, Joe, I got my notes out in front of me, and after you said all that beautiful stuff about how you love this movie, I can't wait to tell you that I really don't care about this movie.
No.
uh,
I had a feeling. I knew it.
yeah,
Yeah, I
the
mean,
first major rift between the Joes.
it's all downhill from here, guys.
All downhill. Yeah, but so here's the thing. I can see why a lot of people love it. And I respect their decisions, but they're all wrong, including you. But so, here, okay. So here's the thing. I have actually a couple of technical, nitpicky type things, or not so much nitpicks. I'm just gonna say them. The dialogue is really quiet in this movie, and it might just be because it is, it's from it's 76, I believe, is when this one came out.
Yeah, movie takes place in
1970.
movie takes place in 75, but released in 76.
Right, exactly. And so it's probably just the way things were back in the day. But this movie, when I start, because I got it on Amazon Prime, I did a little renty do, and I started watching it, and I was like, "Good God, I can barely hear what any character is saying in this movie. It is the dialogue is so absurdly quiet, and it doesn't help that Sylvester Stallone sounds like he's trying to talk through an entire like Tempermatric pillow shoved inside of his two cheeks. You know?
I know that's the Italian stallion for you.
I know that's the Italian stallion, but it's just that's one of my nitpicks. Second nitpick: he steals turtle food. He just straight up steals turtle food.
That's your nitpick.
That's my nitpick. He's in there and he's kind of like he's eyeing up, hey Adrian, and the other woman who's there, she's just sort of like, hey Rocky, you gonna pay for that turtle food? And he's like, I'll be back to kiss this chick later, and then he just leaves with the turtle food.
Yeah. Yeah, I knew that. He says a line about something about like crime or something like that, like oh crime don't pay or something like that. I have no clue. I just thought of it as nobody fucks with Rocky, so. But it was so
Yeah,
weird. It's a little thing, but
it
like
was weird.
yeah, because that whole scene is he goes in there every day and he tries to flirt with Adrian, tell her a new joke every day, make her laugh.
It's kind of uncomfortable. It's kind of endearing, but also kind of uncomfortable. So yeah, yeah. Also, something else that's really funny as like on the same topic of like speaking, the ADR in this movie. Have you? I know you've been watching this movie for a while, ever since you were young, and you really like it. But do you notice the ADR in the movie?
ADR meaning.
Oh, sorry. So sometimes in movies where there's like dialogue scenes, you can tell what was filmed. Like you can sometimes capture sound in the scene, like on the day, and other times actors will go into sound booths and record themselves saying lines, or like maybe in a fight scene screaming and making grunts, and then they'll add that in post. And you can tell in Rocky so many of the lines, like
Oh,
when an actor isn't facing the camera, it instead of sounding distanced like this, like it'll be two characters talking from far away, and then a character will turn around, and then their voice sounds like this up close, and then they turn back and they sound like this, and it's
yeah. In the fight scene, that happens
mind-bogglingly
when they.
distracting.
I think yeah. In the fight scene, they do that when they're like, whenever they like tie each other up, um, it sounds like they're almost doing like a voiceover.
Yes, yeah, it sounds like I could never tell what they were saying to each other. Like I didn't turn on subtitles because you know how I hate subtitles on movies
Hmm.
and whatever. But like I almost wanted to because like it sounds like they're saying stuff to each other, and I kind of want to hear the shit talk or whatever
Yeah,
they're
when they
doing.
when they when they were fighting, yeah, they do say stuff to each other. But it's
Yeah,
supposed to also be through mouth guards, so it's supposed to be
right.
mumbly.
That makes sense. Yeah, okay. That yeah, that kind of like makes a lot more sense that I wouldn't be able to understand that. And also, Rocky just sounds like he's got a Tempur-Pedic mattress inside of his cheeks.
Any other gripes?
Um, any other grabs? Yeah, I'm just going down my list real quick.
Okay, give me just keep them coming.
My biggest, honestly, my biggest thing. Everything else, it's really nitpicky stuff. The stealing the turtle food, dialogue is really quiet. That's ADR is weird and whack. It was a tiny, not tiny movie, but they didn't know what it was going to become, and it's kind of cute seeing like this sort of stuff. Thing that I don't like, Rocky is really creepy with Adrian on the first date, like at the end when they finally kiss. It's played to be like, okay, good. Rocky sort of brought Adrian out of his shell, and I get that, but it's also kind of horrifying, and I'm like, it's right on the cusp of being like okay, and also right on the cusp of being very not okay. It's like that. It fits perfectly in that gray area, and I'm like, I don't know how to feel about watching this nearly 200-pound man. I know he's 190. I remember that from the intro of the fight scene when he's with Creed. Don't worry. This nearly 200-pound man just like put his arms out, and he's just like, no, 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 you don't go anywhere. I want to kiss you. And then she's very much like, and I get it. She's shy. I know. But also, Rocky, there's a little something called consent, brother? You know?
I agree with you. It is definitely in 2021. It's a little weird. I don't think it's completely one of those things where it's like, oh, too far, and we just kind of accept it for like, oh, it was just the 70s. I don't think it's to that point. I think it walks on a fine line and it doesn't jump to one side or the other. Like it doesn't play it safe, and it's not like okay, that's not cool. Like you're like okay, this is a little weird. He's this like I remember noticing it when he grabs the pull up bar and he's in his tank top and he's just kind of like hanging over her.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
what these lats? Ah, I don't know where I got those.
I remember being like, oh, I'm like Rocky's definitely like showing off right now, trying to be like, oh,
One
you
hundred
come.
percent.
Yeah, yeah, but I get it's weird for me. If anybody else had done that, I would think it was weird. But the fact that Rocky did it, I don't think it's weird.
Because you kind of like,
Because I like that. That's the one big note I have is that Rocky. The best thing I love about Rocky is that he's a good guy. Like he is not an asshole. He's a good dude. He means well. Um,
yes.
and like I think that whole exchange you're talking about, I don't think like based off what I see, I don't think Rocky has like any bad intentions with that. But it definitely he's also stupid. Like he knows he's stupid.
Yeah, it's
Um,
a little bit.
yeah, he just it seems like he just doesn't know how to handle the situation, and he just handled it terribly. But yeah, I didn't view it as whoa, this creepo was like trying to like I don't know. I didn't think of it that way. Even though I know it's very much like it can go either way when it comes to that situation.
Right. Yeah. It's good that it turned out the way it did. It's good that Adrian was like, "Hey, I'm not shy anymore." It's just it's a little odd.
Yes, I
Um,
agree.
yeah, I do kind of like Adrian though. Like
Oh,
the
she's awesome.
yeah, she's pretty cool. I especially love, even if it feels a little underdeveloped, her burst at her brother. What's her brother's name? I
Paulie.
wrote it down. Paulie.
Paul.
Yes,
Yeah.
because I hate Paulie. I I really hate him in this movie. Like I did a little bit of research into future movies just because I
Hmm.
was curious,
Okay.
and I've seen that he's in future movies, so obviously he returns. Um, but in this movie, I really did not. I didn't like Polly.
Yeah. So
uh,
with Paulie and Adrian, um, they're honestly when it comes to the Rocky stories, um, whatever, whether it's there's Rocky, there's six Rockies, and then there's the two Creeds. Um,
there's six Rockies running around.
talk about the multiverse, man.
Just so many
The League of Rockies.
Adrians. Oh my god.
They
Get
have
it.
their own
We
podcast.
gotta make it. We gotta make it now. Make it now. And then it'll just be you and me going. We'll just do
You
the
can
same
only quote the
podcast.
movie.
We can only quote the movies. We'll just do the same podcast, but in Rocky quotes and with a Rocky voice.
But in those movies, and even in this one, like both Paulie and Adrian get a lot of character development. They play huge roles. Like Paulie isn't just this um, side character. Like he's an important um, character in the story. And Paulie's Adrian's drunk loser brother, um, who it's crazy because um, my dad told me that he had a friend literally exactly like Paulie, like where it's like this
Oh no.
dude is just like just he's like a loser. He's just a drunk dude, and but for some reason Rocky's friends with him, and yeah, you really hate Paulie in this movie, um, because you're like he's just an asshole, and but he gets a lot of development in the later movies. You learn a lot about him, um, and he's actually one of my favorite characters. Not for the sense of like, oh, I like him, but I feel like if you take Paulie out of the story, it's a completely different movie, and he's actually really integral to the story. And then when
Yeah,
it comes,
I would
okay,
agree
you can
with
go.
that.
Sorry.
He is very integral. Oh, I was just gonna say, yeah, I think he's also pretty integral. He helps Rocky out when it comes. I mean, number one, he sets him up with his sister. So without Polly, they probably would have never actually gone out. So I guess that's something good that he does. He also kind of helps him indirectly discover that he can punch dead cows, and it's pretty good for his rapid training. And I just wanted to mention, like there's like this thing. I don't know if it's a trope or just like an element of of storytelling where there's something about three characters that always
Mm,
seems to work. You know,
yep.
it's Rocky, Adrian, and Polly. Lord of the Rings, it's Frodo, Sam, Gollum, Danny Phantom, Danny, Sam, Tucker. You know, all the greats, Joe.
I
All the
like that,
greats.
and I would agree with you. Yeah, rules of three, man. It's wild, and even Adrian, even in this movie, she gets surprisingly a lot of development. Like when she finally does burst out at Paulie, I love that. Made
It's
my
so
day.
cathartic. It's
Oh
so
my,
cathartic.
yeah, yeah. Talia Shire is the actress, and she's amazing. Yeah, she did an amazing job with that. I love her as Adrian. Maybe in this first movie, she's kind of just like the romantic interest, but in the later movies, um, it's interesting. They actually like they make her look prettier in the later movies. Like she gradually and gradually gets more. Um,
She gets more Hollywoodified.
yeah, kind of in the first movie, they obviously try and make her like this, like oh, I'm a librarian, like not trying to make her not look attractive. And they do the dramatic, oh, take the glasses off. She's
I
beautiful.
love that. I love the dramatic. I love how Hollywood is like, you are but fucking ugly if you wear a hat and glasses. And then there are like Instagram models and Visco girls out here who are like, everyone wants to be with me when I put on my hipster glasses and my beanie. Like Hollywood, you really gotta buck that trope, you know? You
Yeah,
gotta
they're
you gotta get that
45
out.
years behind, man.
Hmm.
But
Granted, that was 45, 50 years ago at this point, but still, that's really stupid.
yeah, and yeah, no, both of those characters are really important. I love them both. And like I said, in the later movies, Adrian, they actually make her like, it's just weird how they like gradually make her prettier, but she also really does play an important role in the story. Because Adrian doesn't like fighting, obviously. She has no clue why someone would want to fight. And in the
Yeah, I
later
was
stories, that
curious
comes
about
up.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
because
really comes up.
in this one, she's doesn't she asks him in the beginning, like on their first date, like, why do you do it? And Rocky goes, oh, why do you think? Perfect Rocky impression. Thank you. And she just does the same thing that he responded to her with, which is like, because you can't sing and you can't dance or whatever. Um, and I don't know if I just like missed it or something, or if I don't remember it, but like he doesn't really have another answer, or she doesn't really seem to have an answer. And then at the end, at the final fight, she's just sort of like waiting in the locker room, and she just says to him, she's like, don't or do well or whatever, good luck. And then she just comes at the very end when she hears all the racket, and then she's just like, I love you, and I'm like, I don't understand what happened. So she doesn't like him fighting.
Yeah, she really doesn't like fighting at all. In the second movie, she tries to get him to retire, and it's a whole thing. It's second movie is second one's arguably better actually.
I have
um,
heard that.
yeah, it's there. Everybody's Rocky ratings are different. It's funny. I think the second one is better, but if I had to pick to watch one for the rest of my life, I'd pick the first one over the second one. Um, and I know that's hard to explain, but there's just something special of like, I don't know, the Rocky origin story, I guess. Because the second one is definitely a better movie. But
Right.
yeah, she doesn't like him fighting, and with he eventually does say, when they were at the ice skating rink, that his dad told him like, hey, you weren't born with much of a brain, so you got to learn to use your body. And she says, oh, my mom told me the opposite. Um, and you get a little bit more development down in the second one where he kind of talks about how um, why he got into fighting and stuff like that. And it's yeah, their relationship, it's very it gets a lot more development. I keep saying it, like there's a lot more development in the later movies, because surprisingly enough, like the other Rocky movies are pretty good. Rocky Five, oof, it's not that good. You can watch it and you'll laugh, but all the other ones are actually really entertaining. And when it came to this movie, with I mean, we're jumping all over the place, but the ending, yeah, she doesn't want to watch the fight because she hates fighting. So she's like, I'm just gonna be in the locker room and I'll wait for you when you're done. 'Cause she don't want to see him getting beat up. But I think what's insinuated is the fact that Rocky wasn't supposed to be able to go to the distance, right? It was supposed to be 3 rounds, and he was supposed to be done. And after time goes by, and she's in that locker room, and she's like, "What the heck's going on?" And I think curiosity gets the best of her, and she gets out there, and she sees him bloodied and battered, and just getting destroyed. And it's one of those things where she loves him, and even though she has to watch him get the shit beat out of him, she I guess maybe the way I think of it is she wants to actually be there to support him, like actually watching him. And I think my favorite part, my the reason I like Rocky so much is this whole idea of, you know, Rocky really doesn't care if he wins. It's not about winning for him. It's the whole idea of going the distance, um, showing he talks about it uh, the night before the fight with Adrian, where he's like, all I want to do is go the distance. He goes, I just want to show that I'm not just some bum. I'm not just some other person from the street. He goes, I want to show that like I'm something special. He goes, I don't have to win. And I think is what that's what I love about the story. And I mean, in the end, Rocky doesn't win. He loses, but the fact that some Italian from South Philly, Southpaw, was able to go the distance with the world heavyweight champion of the world. Um, it's the underdog story. That's what it is. I love a good underdog story, and I just love the character of Rocky. I don't know if that's just the Italian Philly in me being extremely biased. Uh, but yeah, I love the whole underdog story and just the idea of going the distance.
Yeah, and that to me that's the best part of the entire movie. Where because again, I have a lot of little nitty bitty. I mean, they're not so nitty bitty in some aspects, but things that really aren't that detrimental in the long run. But from the moment the iconic montage,
Yeah,
everyone knows that
that's
I already
that's when
said
it
it.
really picks up.
That's what I'm saying. It's like that, and I looked at the timer. That's an hour and 30 minutes
Hmm.
into the movie.
Yep.
Joe, this movie is 2 hours long. It is too long. I think you could easily shave a half hour, maybe 45 minutes out of this movie
Yeah.
if you were able to actually like condense some of the like establishing stuff
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
beginning down.
There's a lot of establishing stuff at the beginning that can definitely be cut out. Me personally, I don't mind it because I I kind of like how the movie isn't 100% like, oh, half the movie's the actual fight and there's just a bunch of different clips of them fighting. Like I actually kind of like how the fights only the last like 20 something minutes. And but yeah, there's a lot that can be cut out big time.
Mhm. Yeah, but I do. It is true that the point of it isn't really the actual fight. It's just sort
Hmm.
of Rocky being able to go the distance with Apollo Creed, and that's again from the moment that iconic montage starts up, it's like way better movie, way different movie. I don't know if better is the right term, but it's like I was way more. I was like, okay, the movie starts now, and then I was like, I'm in, I'm ready. And I was watching him do his montage thing, and it was cool seeing it to the top and do the iconic, the little jig around, do his little like 1-2 punch sort of thing, and then seeing him and Creed just go at it, and just seeing. I love the line that one of what's it called? One of Creed's the guys who stand in the corner of the ring where the round ends, and they give them water and
Yeah.
stuff. What are they called? Do you know?
So one would be depending on one of the guys. There's a bunch of different ones. There's the manager, the cut man, um, and just like the corner man. You can call him. Basically his team. That you could call it.
Yeah. So it's one of his team. I don't think it's his manager. It's another African American guy, and he just says to me, he's like, "Yo, this man doesn't know that it's for show, man. You gotta take him out." And then you see Apollo, and he's just kind of like nods, like, "Yeah, I realize that now." And you're like, "Oh Christ!" And I just love that because it shows it's like it's so anime, where it's like
Mm,
the villain shows up and he's like all powerful, and the protagonist has been slowly building their abilities for the entirety of the season, and then they get to fighting them, and the person's like, ah ha ha, you haven't seen my final form, and they go to their final form, and they're like, ah, I'm so much stronger than you, and then all of a sudden the protagonist tanks like a hit from the villain, and the villain's like, "Nani?" And then the protagonist just whips out a sword and goes full Bankai on their asses, and it's like, oh my god! So it like that was like the anime moment for me, where I was like, Rocky is he's ready and he is just gonna go for it. And that aspect, I mean, that's probably why I like that one so much, because it is so like anime to me. But that the entire fight montage scene, whatever you want to call it, it's I love it. It's great because it's not about the winning. It's about it's just about going the distance and proving yourself, which he does. Also, when it comes to the deciding thing, I don't understand it at all.
Oh,
Like how they
boxing.
decided who won.
Oh, boxing. In boxing, there's judges, um,
Well,
who
yeah.
they keep track of. They try and keep track of punches landed, actually, and they also,
Uh,
at the end of each round, the judge makes a decision of who won the round. So if it goes to a judge's decision at the end, they add up punches. Basically, they do math. They add up the punches. They add up who they think won each round. And so, with there was three judges for Rocky's fight, and so it was a split decision. So one thought Rocky, one thought Apollo, and then and then the last one decided that Apollo won.
gotcha. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, because I just remembered seeing them both fighting, and like in the final round, and they're both out of gas, and then the thing's over, and then it's like deciding it's up to one judge, and then they're like, yeah, it's Apollo Creed, and I was like, how did you? What does
Mm-hmm.
that mean? But that
Yeah.
makes a lot of sense now that I understand, because Apollo does land way more hit. Like Rocky is powerful with his hits, but Apollo is a champion, and he is way more like he's way more better at doing the punching, Joe. And Rocky's just a rock. He just takes them, and he's just like,
Yeah,
I'm
that's
fine. This is fine.
that's what Rocky's known for. Like that's like his thing. Um, Rocky isn't known to be the guy that lands crazy punches or dodges or has fast feet. It's the fact that he can take hits like it's nothing. It's the whole idea of in in Rocky 6 he says this really good line that just encompasses everything that Rocky's about, and it's not about the line is it's not about how hard you can hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. And I love that. I think I think Rocky has a lot of stuff to teach people about life too. I think a lot of like you don't have to like sports or boxing or anything to like this movie. Like it's just the idea of an underdog story and just being very motivational. At least I find it very motivational. Uh, and yeah, the that's the big thing with Rocky. He's not this fancy boxer. He can just take the hits over and over. And when you were talking about the montage, because I mean, we I think we said last week when you said, "Oh, nothing beats a good suit up scene." Nothing beats a
Yeah.
good training montage, man. Like I live for
Oh
them, especially
yeah.
if there's good music. And oh, the Rocky music is amazing. Bill Conti is fantastic. I have so many Rocky songs on my workout playlist because I just love listening to them. I like a lot of people listen to rap and stuff when they work out, and like I get that. I listen to that too. But like when you got some intense orchestral music blasting in your ears and it's dramatic, like oh my goodness, that stuff hypes me up. And one of my favorite scene in the whole movie is round 14, and it's the you hear, and this is when the song "Going the Distance" is playing, and it kind of starts off when they realize like, oh, this is going to be a long fight, and you see the girls walking with the with the round cards, and it slowly um, starts going up, and in round 14, Apollo absolutely knocks Rocky on his ass. Rocky can
Hmm.
barely see. He is bleeding all over the place. And once he knocks him down, everybody thinks it's over. Apollo's going back to his corner. And I think, yeah, this is the time when Adrian steps out too. And you got going the distance, just slowly rising and rising in the background. And Rocky eventually gets up, and Apollo turns around, and Rocky does the little thing with his hands like, "Come on, come on!" And Apollo just can't believe it. He's like, holy crap, like what the hell is this guy? And
I just knocked this man onto his ass for like the 100th time. Please, for the love of God, stay down.
yeah, and then Rocky just goes at him and starts landing punches, and then the intensity of going the distance comes on, the orchestral music, and then goes to round 15, the final round, and like that, just that like 2 minutes, I it makes me feel a certain type of way, man.
It
It's
makes me feel a certain type of way, you know?
it's
Yeah, it's insane. It's so good. Like that, honestly, the last half hour of this movie is just, I think, so much better than everything that came before it. And it's partially, I think the stuff before it helped to set up that stuff to be a little bit
mhm.
better. But honestly, you could probably release it as a short film, and I think it would be just as, it might have been just as influential and just as big.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I feel like I'm trying to think of what it was like. Like I'm trying to put my mind in the 70s, and like I actually love how much of an honest portrayal of Philly that is. And like
It's
it's kind
dirty as hell.
yeah, Philadelphia is what they would call
Yep.
it. And like it's weird because so like my parents grew up in the Northeast, and that Rocky doesn't take place in the Northeast. It's kind of vague actually where it takes place because technically all the Italians are from like South Philly, so it would make sense for it to be in South Philly. But he has one of the street signs is for Kensington, and Kensington isn't that close to South Philly. It's a little farther away, and I was like, interesting. And also, when Rocky goes for his walk to the Spectrum, which is where that's where the stadium where the fight is. It's called the Spectrum. Um, he just like goes for a walk to it, and I'm like, whoa. I'm like, wait a minute. I'm like, if he's in South Philly, that makes sense. But if he's in Kensington, I'm like, that's a walk, and it kind of confused me a little bit. But I'm like, okay. I'm like this. I'm like, I'm not gonna stress it too much. But like, I love the way I love the way the 70s look actually. Like I love the clothes, the style. I love the people what are they like the doo-wop singing on the street near
Yeah,
like
yeah,
the
yeah.
trash can with the fire. Like there's just a bunch of different things in it where I like the grimy aesthetic actually.
It feels very lived in. Like it really does feel like this is a city that exists out there, and it's the 70s. So I imagine I mean, I don't even know how much set dressing they would have had to do on any of those streets. They probably just showed up and were like, clear out. We're gonna film a couple of scenes, and they just put the actors on, and they're like, go. And then they took the actors off, and they're like, all right, you can resume because we left it how we found it. This is what it looked like. Um, and that's another thing, just real quick, like on the technical side of things, I'd forgotten that Sylvester Stallone wrote this movie. Like, did he have any, I don't know,
Did
like
you
help?
do
Did
you,
he have like someone to
do you have
do the
no
thing
clue the
with?
story of this movie?
No, I do know the story of this movie. And like how it like ties in with Sylvester Stallone's life and all that sort of stuff. When I was watching the credits, like in the beginning of the movie when he's doing his
Hmm.
walk and seeing the
Yeah.
doo wop group and everything like that, I just saw written by and then
Yeah.
Stallone, and I was like, oh right, I forgot this guy who has three whole Tempur-Pedic mattresses stuffed inside of each one of his cheeks actually wrote this film, and that's kind of what
Yeah,
spawned this entire franchise.
he was homeless. He had
Hmm.
$25 in his bank account. Um, and that dog Buttkiss in the movie, that was his actual dog. And he was homeless, and he wrote Rocky, and he you know he shared the story um, with a production company. I think was it Warner Bros. That produced this. I can't
I don't
remember,
remember.
or it might have been
Uh,
MGM, but one of them. They shared it with him, and they were ready to offer him $1 million, but uh, but Stallone said no. I want to play the main character. And they're like, no, we can't do that, and he denied the offer, and he
hmm.
walked out after only having $25, and they were offering him $1 million because he wanted to play the main role. He goes, no one else can do it. He goes, I'm doing it, And apparently they reached out to him like 3 days later, and they said, "Okay, you can do it." And before that had happened, he had to sell his dog, Buckus, uh, so that he could have some money to live. And apparently, when he got his first paycheck for the movie, the first thing he did is he ran out and he bought Buckus back.
It's like, give him back, baby. He's mine now.
Yeah,
That
it's
is
just
nice, though. He was just like, my doggy, come home. I can support you.
yeah, and I don't know the details of like what Stallone was doing beforehand. Like that's the story that I know of. Like he was homeless, he had this story, and he was not giving it to anybody unless he got the acting job. And I think that's a really cool. I like the background of that. I think that adds to the story a little bit as well.
Yeah, definitely. The actual history of Sylvester Stallone and knowing what the film kind of like went through to like get made and in the form that we got it now, it just adds to the mythos of like what it was. It's the same with there's a lot of movies from the 70s that are like Star Wars, how it was like a disaster until I don't know, some editor came in and re-edited the whole thing, and then you know what Star Wars is now. And the same with what should we call it? I'm pretty sure there were horror stories with like Terminator or Aliens or something like that,
Blade
or
Runner.
like things Blade Runner, yeah, and how that was its own thing.
There's
There's
20
so many
different cuts.
things. Yeah, well, that's just studios being studios and doing other whatever. But yeah, for whatever reason, the '70s, man, there was I don't know what was in the water, cocaine. But everyone was on it, and they were doing a lot of stuff with it.
Yeah, man. I don't know. I understand why you weren't a big fan of it, and like I had a feeling. I'm like Joe's definitely gonna like nitpick the shit out of this and be like, Rocky is an idiot.
Rocky is a dum dum, and this movie is stupid.
But this, at the end of the day, I cried so much at the end. I know it's so cheesy having the girl run in and they're yelling for each other and they tell them that they love each other, but it it my emotions were going, and just with the music playing and everything's happening. Oh my god, it's weird. Like Rocky is not a real person, but it's like everybody from Philly literally treats him like he's real, and it's. I mean, we have a damn statue of him.
You do. I've seen it. Can confirm for anyone who's not been to Philly. It is real.
Yeah, I love this movie, and I give it 9 Serta mattresses in Rocky's mouth out of 10.
I like you chose a different mattress brand. Um, yeah, the first 90 minutes of the movie, I'd give probably a solid 5 Tempur-Pedic mattresses inside of Rocky's mouths out of 10. But once you get past that 90-minute mark and the movie, like everything that you know from the movie actually gets going, uh, that's like a 7. Like it'll even out to like 6 Tempur-Pedic mattresses for me out of 10. That's what I would say. Um, and yeah, anyone should watch it just because that's an iconic piece of movie history, and it's like watch it at least once, and after that, just YouTube all the best scenes. That's all you need. As your heart slowly breaks.
Slowly, more like it just shattered.
Yeah, I just did a 1, 2, and you just see it's I did a boxing thing. It was
Look at that. You
good
learned
bit.
something.
I learned a little thingy ding. All right, so that was all of our talking about Rocky. I need to talk about my movie for next week.
Did Joe
Okay,
do his
so
homework?
Joe, I gotta tell you something, buddy.
I'm so scared. He's gonna pick Rocky 2.
Electric Boogaloo. I probably just blew out someone's someone's ears. Sorry, headphone users. Yeah, I was when I was on Hulu yesterday, doing the Attack on Titan thing. I saw that I had something still in my watch list. It is a movie I've seen already, but I've been wanting to rewatch it again. Joe, have you ever seen the movie Super 8?
Oh, yes, a long time ago.
That's fine because we're gonna rewatch it again, baby.
Awesome. I actually really like that.
Sick. So yeah, that'll be the film for next week's Super 8. And thus should conclude the first episode of Cup of Joe with Joe and Joe Movie Edition, which might confuse some people. The whole branding thing, whatever. The first 3 episodes of season or volume 2, excuse me, bless me, thank you. Were all the 2 hour long things, and we're like, that's too long. We don't want to do 2 hour long things. We got to go to the bathroom. So that's the way it's going to be. So just remember, Tuesdays, movie discussions. Excuse me, Wednesdays. What's Wednesdays? Comic books. That's what we're doing. I know our schedule. And
Joe,
then Thursdays.
you don't know anything about comic books. Come on, man.
No, I don't know anything like it. That's all you, buddy. And then Thursdays, anime. I'm the sports guy, remember?
Oh yeah, I completely forgot about that.
Everything we do is a role. We don't actually believe in any of this. Like, comment, subscribe, comment whatever you want. Comment what you think of Rocky. Which Rocky you think is the best. I don't know. I don't care. Yeah, and that'll be that from these couple of Joes. Good night, everybody. Love you. Mwah.
Adrian, I love you.